Rest in peace, Robin. What is up, guys? EJ here, aka PuckBond007, and welcome to the Movie Reviewers 100, this great collaboration channel here on YouTube and Facebook that I'm proud to be a part of. So, unfortunately, this week we lost one of the greats, comedic genius. Robin Williams passed away on Monday. Took his own life. But I believe hanging himself is the last report I heard anyway. So yeah, very sad news on Monday that we lost Robin Williams. Yeah, but he was a great actor, very funny, but also great in dramatic roles. If you grew up in the 80s like me, you were introduced to him, at least I was, through Mork and Mindy. It's been ages since I've seen any of those. And then, of course, his great movie career in the 80s, like Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, and then on to the 90s with films like Hook. I'm going to blank on some of these. Stuff like Jumanji and Flubber, Good Will Hunting, of course, What Dreams May Come, and then on into the 2000s, I thought he was terrific in Insomnia and 1 Hour Photo, and as recently as just a few years ago, the Night at the Museum films. I really enjoyed him as Teddy Roosevelt in those movies, and I heard they completed a third one that comes out later this year. Yeah, really sad news. I've not always been a huge fan of his comedy. It's not really my cup of tea per se, but he was a genius. I mean, he had that sort of unbelievable energy, and he could bounce from character to character, and they weren't exactly impersonations. It was just he had amazing range when it comes to his comedy, and he was a great dramatic actor, of course. But the film I'm going to talk about today, I mentioned it in the films I listed. It's my favorite performance by Robin Williams, and it's my favorite film of 1997, and that is Good Will Hunting, directed by Gus Van Sant. My favorite film of that year, one of my favorite films of the 90s, absolutely brilliant, near perfect movie, of course. Yeah, the script, of course, was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. It launched their careers. They won Oscars for Best Original Screenplay, about this young man played by Matt Damon, Will Hunting, a young kid from Southie, Boston, just a regular guy, hangs out with his friends, but he's a genius from Southie. Yeah, he just hangs out with his best friend, played by Ben Affleck, and their other two buddies, played by Cole Hauser and Casey Affleck, two well-known actors in their own right now. And of course, Will works at MIT as a janitor, and in his spare time, he watches baseball with his friends, hangs out with his friends, and while he's working as a janitor at MIT, he likes to solve very complex math theory problems that the professor there, played by the always great Stellan Skarsgård, puts out on the board in the hallway to challenge his advanced students. And one day, Matt Damon, Will, is out there scribbling around on the board, solving the problem, and Stellan Skarsgård sees him, and he's like shocked that this janitor is there, and he walks off and tells him to fuck off when he's like, come back here, you can't graffiti on these boards. And then of course he and his colleague, the TA, I guess, realize that he's solving the equations. But then later on, Will gets into a fight with his friends. They go and beat up this guy who used to torment him as a kid, and they get in this big fight on the playground. Cops show up, and while they're sort of restraining Will, he hits one of the cops, so he gets booked for basically resisting arrest and probably assault on the police officer. To avoid jail time, the professor pulls some strings, says he can go free on a couple of conditions. Number one, he works with the professor and their colleagues on advanced math, solving equations. Um, and the other condition is, of course, he has to go see a counselor. He goes through a couple at first. He goes through a couple of guys that do not take to Will's personality, his sort of disdain for the whole idea of counseling and therapy. But then, of course, he turns to his old colleague and friend, played by Robin Williams, as a last resort, sort of. He's from the same neighborhood, so he thinks he can get in touch with Will, find out what's really troubling this young guy. Brilliant mind, but just wants to sort of screw around, not take himself and his gifts very seriously. Um, so they get into therapy, and you pretty much know the movie from there. There's also, of course, the great scene. It's a movie full of great performances, great moments, and great scenes. And of course, one of my favorites is when they go up to the bar in Harvard, and they see, of course, Minnie Driver and her friend sitting at the bar, and Ben Affleck goes over to talk to him. He acts all smooth, trying to pretend that he goes to Harvard as well. And then, of course, the blonde-haired dude with the ponytail comes along and challenges him to ask him about the economic structure in the colonies or some bullshit before the American Revolutionary War. And then, of course, Matt Damon gets in his face. He's like, "You're gonna plagiarize this guy, and then next year you're gonna read this guy." And then, of course, it all ends with the great quote where the blonde guy is at some eatery, and Will sees him in the window, and he goes up to him on the window and goes, "Do you like apples?" He's all, "Yeah." "Well, I got her number. How about them apples?" That's a great moment. And then Matt Damon starts seeing Minnie Driver. She's a student at Harvard, obviously, and they form a relationship while Will is going through this therapy with Robin Williams. That's really the heart of this film, or the scenes between Matt Damon and Robin Williams. You've got that first great scene where he goes to his office and he looks at the picture on the wall, the guy in the boat, and he totally destroys Robin Williams' life in a couple seconds, talks about his wife, and then, of course, we find out the true story of what happened to Robin Williams' wife. Probably my favorite scene is when the next scene between the two of them, when they meet on a park bench by a river, and sort of Robin Williams explains what happened to his wife, and he gives this whole thing to Matt Damon about if I asked you about art, you could quote all these great artists, but you've never smelled the Sistine Chapel and all this kind of stuff. And he tells him about his dying wife who had cancer for years, and how he stood by her and all that. And then he says, I can't help you if you don't tell me who you are, what you want, that kind of stuff. So he finds a way to eventually get through to Matt Damon. Who plays Will Hunting, obviously. It's just a beautiful film, great performances. Robin Williams, utterly fantastic. I mean, that whole sort of manic energy that I talked about with his comedy isn't there at all in this movie. He can be very sympathetic and quiet. He's really, really lovely in this film. Just a great movie and a great performance by him. I'm a huge fan of Ben Affleck. I like Ben a lot. I just call him Ben like I know him. I've always liked Ben Affleck. Let me put it that way. And one of my favorite scenes towards the end of the film is when he's out at his job site where he lays brick, and he tells Matt Damon, he's all, "You've got a gift, etc. You have to go on and do great things, either work in missile defense, whatever, cracking codes." Matt Damon gets set up with some job interviews, and that's the path that the professor, Stellan Skarsgård, is pushing him towards. And Ben Affleck's all, "Fuck you, don't do it for you, do it for me. Because in 50 years, I'm going to wake up and, I'll be laying brick. and that'll be fine. But if I wake up, if you're here in 50 years, I'll just kill you, because yeah, he shouldn't be there with the gifts he has. And then he says, the best part of my day is those 10 seconds I walk up to your house when I'm about to pick you up, and one day I hope you're not going to be there. And then of course the film ends with that exact moment, as by this time Minnie Driver has gone off to California to go to Stanford. She sort of wanted Will to come along with her. He wouldn't do it. He didn't want to really commit and open his heart up to do that. But then of course it ends with the great line. He leaves a note under Robin Williams at Robin Williams's house in his mailbox. I had to go see about a girl. Son of a bitch, he stole my line. That's a great moment at the end of the film. Yeah, it's an interesting soundtrack, good soundtrack, good score by Danny Elfman. The film was executively produced by Kevin Smith, of course, the View Askew director. Big film for the Weinsteins in this period, who produced the film. Lots of great people involved with this movie. It's absolutely brilliant. I love it. It's my favorite film of 1997, and my favorite film starring the late great Robin Williams. So very sad that we lost his comedic genius this week. Yeah, just a sad thing. And also, he's a Bay Area guy, of course. He died in Tiburon in his home, and he's a San Francisco Giants fan like me. And if you've seen on the news when he passed away on Monday, the news stations were running clips of him and stuff, and they showed him like pumping up the crowd at AT&T Park before the 2010 World Series, which the Giants won, obviously. So it was cool seeing him in the Giants gear, like getting the crowd all riled up. So that was interesting as well. On a personal note, he made his home in the Bay Area, and so yeah, that was interesting as well. But yeah, real shame that we lost Robin Williams this week, and also we lost a true great, a true legend as well. The next day, and we'll talk about her next week, Lauren Bacall. So yeah, make sure you check out the videos of the other guys this week. Thanks for watching as always, and until next time, I'll see ya.
Bond. James Bond.